Hi everyone. So today we're going to be talking about atherosclerosis, and like it says here, what atherosclerosis is, it's when cholesterol builds up, cholesterol, fats, calcium, etc. build up on the inside of an artery. So there's some factors that can lead to atherosclerosis, and what they can be is things such as stress, and I'll show you how these cause atherosclerosis. So the first one is stress. When people are under stress, you can damage the inside of the artery, which can lead to atherosclerosis. The most common one that I think people think of when they hear about atherosclerosis is a diet that is high in cholesterol. So let's say a high cholesterol diet. And this would be if someone eats a lot of red meats. Another thing that can happen is they can have a high blood sugar. All right, this is known as hyperglycemia. All right, so we get a high blood sugar. This is more common in men. It's more common as we get older. And by the way, it's also common in post-menopause women. All right, so in post-menopausal women, you can get this if you have high blood pressure. That plays a factor in it. Also, diabetics are more likely to get atherosclerosis. And these are just a few of the things that can lead to atherosclerosis. So let's talk about what actually happens in atherosclerosis. So let me just move this over here. And what you're looking at here is the inside of a blood vessel. So this part right here would be called the lumen. The lumen is where the blood flows. If you notice down here, I have these round cells here. And what these cells are called is endothelial cells. So endothelial cells, to give you an idea of what they're basically like skin cells. But when they're in the cardiovascular system, they're called endothelial cells because they're inside. Epithelial cells are above the dermis, right? So they're called epithelial cells. Endothelial cells are like epithelial cells. The difference being is these cells actually have a protein in them called keratin, which makes them waterproof. This does not have it. Also, these are responsible for helping blood flow over or through the artery smoothly, okay? I don't have them drawn up here, but I could, okay? And I'm just gonna be using them down here. So basically, in the endothelial lining, which is these cells lined up, it's usually about one cell layer thick, okay? So here it is right here. This is my endothelial lining. So let's talk about what happens. So in the bloodstream or in people's diets, they eat things called LDLs, low density lipoproteins, and this is known as the bad cholesterol. That's my bad cholesterol. And then you have something called HDLs. HDLs are the good cholesterol. Part of what HDLs do is they keep LDLs from building up on this endothelial lining. However, as you get older, the amount of HDLs you have decreases. LDLs, well, both of these, you need both of these. LDLs will also help make things such as proteins. They also help make things like vitamin D. All right. So normally what happens is I have my LDL and it will go through the endothelial lining to some organ where it is needed. Right. But the problem is in our diets, we have a tendency to eat too much cholesterol or too many LDLs. So what can happen is, let's say we're under a lot of stress, all right? And I can get damage, to my endothelial lining. So instead of being nice and round, or they're actually flat, but instead of being nice and flat, these become damaged. All right, so now there's my endothelial cells that have been damaged. Well, as I eat more and more LDLs, more than I need, and in actuality, LDLs can damage these too. What these will do is they will actually go through here and what we call the subintima space. All right, and it's basically right below the endothelial lining. So now I got these LDLs in this area here. So what occurs when I start to get LDLs in this area here is these bad receptors or these bad endothelial cells will actually make a receptor. And what the receptor will do is it will basically cause monocytes, which is a type of white blood cell that's usually traveling in the blood. It will basically stop them, and these two will form a bond. And then what will happen is this monocyte will now pass into this subintimal space. So here's my monocyte right here. Okay? And then what the monocyte will do is it will release something called a free radical. It releases free radicals. Okay, there's my free radicals. Now the free radicals will come over and they will basically bond with these LDLs. And these LDLs will go on to become oxidized. So they become oxidized. And when they're oxidized, they're actually called LDLC. Now, what these free radicals or what these LDLs that have been oxidized will do is they will attract more of these monocytes. So because I get more monocytes now, what happens is they release more free radicals. And because I eat a diet that's high in low density lipoproteins, they become oxidized, and so you can see it's a cycle. Eventually what happens to these monocytes when they're inside, and don't forget I'm still calling some more over, they will differentiate. And what will happen is they will become something that's called a macrophage. Macrophage means big eater. And this is another type of white blood cell. So here's my macrophage right here. All right? And what these macrophages will do is they will actually start to eat. They'll do two things. They'll start to eat these low density lipoproteins. Okay, my LDLs, they'll start to eat them. So, and it's a process called phagocytosis. All right, so that's why they say macrophage, because they're big eaters. They do phagocytosis. So you can see these are starting to eat these lipoproteins now, the LDLs. And the other thing that these macrophages will do is they will release something called growth factor. Now down lower in a blood vessel, you actually have another layer down here called the tunica media. And it contains muscle, it contains smooth muscle. And the function of the tunica media is basically when you want the blood vessel to constrict, it constricts and it makes the blood vessel smaller. When you want the blood vessel to be larger, the tunica media, the smooth muscles, will actually relax and my blood vessel will get larger. Well, what this growth factor will do is it will cause those smooth muscles to start making more muscle cells. And these muscle cells will now move into this tunica media area that we're at. And then what they will do is they will also absorb these LDLs. And in fact, these smooth muscles can actually also turn into macrophages. All right? So as you can see though, over time, as you continue eating stuff, as you continue to have an unhealthy diet, what's going to happen is eventually this is going to start accumulating. So even though I'm just drawing this as a straight line here, imagine this still has, well, I'll just draw them on here. It has these damaged endothelial cells on here, okay? So what's going to happen is we're going to continue to get these macrophages in here, right? And we're going to continue to have LDLs in here, and I'm going to continue to have my muscle cells coming into here, right? And basically, when I have the muscle cells with the and the macrophages with the LDLs inside of them, they're called foam cells because they look like they're foam. All right, so basically what I've done now is I've made foam cells. And here's more muscle cells in here, and another muscle cell, and my LDL inside of it. And the muscle cells, what they'll actually start doing is they'll actually start lining up along the inside of this endothelial lining. They'll start lining up. And then what they'll do is they'll start releasing substances that will actually cause this. They'll start releasing substances that will become collagen. So they will start to make something called a fibrous capsule. So this is going to be my fibrous capsule right here on the inside of this. All right, so I have those muscle cells there, and they're releasing stuff that's going to make collagen. All right, and so I'm going to end up with something called a fibrous capsule. Let me see if I have a blue pen here. So they're going to make something called a fibrous capsule, or fibrous cap, okay? Now, here's the other thing that happens, is eventually these macrophages and these muscle cells that are in here, eventually these start to die out. And when they die out, what they are going to do is they are going to release these LDLs that are inside of them. So here's my macrophage dying out, and here's another macrophage dying out. And when they die out, like I said, they're going to release these LDLs that are in here. So these will actually start to pile up in the middle of this atherosclerosis here. And what this is actually called is an arthroma. So I start to get all this inside the middle here, okay? And this is called an arthroma. All right, and so that will basically start to accumulate there. So I got my fibrous cap here. I have my arthroma here, which is the soft center middle. I should actually draw this coming down like this. This will be my arthroma that's in here. And then I'm going to have my dead macrophages and things such as that. And this will all continue to pile up as people continue to eat their LDLs and all that stuff. And it continues to grow. So that's basically how you get atherosclerosis. So thank you for watching.